So here's our recap on joy, this characteristic of a disciple that we've been looking at this month and how to get joy in our lives. We started off with this picture of waves just washing over us. Here we are, people who can't control what happens in our lives. We can control some of it, but actually good stuff happens, bad stuff happens, and it's easy to feel, let's be honest, joyful on a day when good stuff happens. You get a promotion, you meet somebody really nice in the bar, your team wins the premiership, you're like, wow, I feel joyful today. Bad stuff happens to you, you get sacked, you get dumped, your team gets relegated. You don't feel joyful on that day. Why would you? And so our culture is, and we're part of it, where we say actually it's easy to feel joyful on a good day or when good things happen. It's difficult to feel joyful. We feel joyless on days when bad things happen. And this stuff just washes over us and we don't have control over most of it. You just happen to be born in that place with those parents and that family, and your health may be that, and there feels very little you can do about it. And so joy feels something that's dictated to you by the outside. And then we looked from there at a quote by a lady called Kay Warren, who said that just doesn't track with her reality of life. She noticed that there was good stuff and bad stuff that happened at the same time. It wasn't that there was different waves that happened that were independent of each other. It's that she was trying to juggle them both on the same day. It could be that, she's got two kids maybe, and one of them was a joy bringer and one of them was a joy drainer. It may be that you're having a great day at work, you get the promotion, you put the key in the door at home, you open the door and just all hell breaks loose. It may be that there's real health crises going on in your life, and that could be a joy stealer, but actually there's incredible friends around you who bring you joy. She said they're not separate. And so her picture was of a train track where one rail was joyful stuff, the other one was painful stuff, and actually we've got to learn to be the train that straddles both at the same time. Which leaves us with a question, well, if that's true, how is it possible to get joy? How is it possible to be a joyful person? And then we said that a Christian is someone who isn't looking at the external stuff to be the joy bringer in the first place. A Christian is somebody who has all their chips somewhere else. For instance, let's think of it like this. Say a couple comes to get married. One, usually the woman, has spent years picturing this day in her mind. She has planned for this day. She drew pictures of it as a girl. She's been training doves for the last 5 years secretly. She's told everybody what they're allowed to wear and what they're not allowed to wear. She's picked out the colours. She's picked out the hotel. She's picked out the dresses. She's picked out the flowers, because she knows that this day is going to be incredible. It's going to be the day of her dreams. It's going to put Disney in the shade. It's going to be so good. And she has everything planned, and this day is going to bring her joy. But everybody else knows, we know, you know, I know, that actually that day is going to end, and that tomorrow morning she's going to wake up opposite somebody whose breath could kill a donkey from 100 yards, who's drooling all over the pillow, and they're stuck together for the rest of their life, and they're going to make their life happen from that point. It doesn't matter how good the wedding day was. It could have been brilliant and perfect, and just everything went smoothly into plan. No matter how good it was, it finishes. And the same is true of difficult times, tough times, hard things. The Christian knows it doesn't matter how bad that is, it's not eternal. It doesn't matter how bad that is, that's not the ultimate truth and the ultimate reality about you. A Christian isn't putting all their chips on the good stuff to bring them joy, and they're able somehow to get through the bad stuff without that destroying them. They're not fooled by the gold, they're not destroyed by the pain. A Christian has their hope for joy based on something else. So what is that something else? Well, the something else is the truth that God has got you, that Jesus has saved you, that He has won you, that He has redeemed you, that somehow this God who does exist, we all just look at the stars, hold a newborn baby, you know there's something out there. You see Him most clearly in Jesus, and Jesus did something on the cross, and you don't get it, but you go, oh wow, somehow when the God of the universe looks at me, it's not judgment or vengeance or anything like that, it's love and grace, and He sees me as a daughter, He sees me as a son of His. That's the kind of relationship we have. Now that is unshakable. I could be in a shipwreck and that is still true. I could be a multimillionaire and that wasn't the thing that was going to give me joy anyway. And so if that is the truth, that is the knowledge which sets you free, you are able to be somebody that rides the highs and the lows of the storm and isn't sidetracked by either way. Joy stays constant in you. So that's all well and good was the next point, but how do you remember that when you're in a really rubbish meeting at work, when the kids are doing you nothing, when the doctor gives you a bad health note? How do you remember that? And so there's this really practical, really simple way that Jesus people, God's people have been doing for thousands of years, and it's this. It's telling the story of their gang, telling the story of their faith, telling the story of their God over and over. And they would sit down before a meal, and the head of the household would say before the meal, let's just give thanks for this food. And then they would go, oh God, you created the universe. And if anybody ever starts a prayer like that, you know you're in trouble. It's going to be a long one, so just start eating quietly under the table. But they would tell the story of their faith. God, you created, and then your people did this, and then they walked away from you, and you pulled them back by this, and this really dark period happened in our lives, but God, you were faithful, and we didn't realize it at the time, but you were there, and there were fingerprints of your faithfulness and your provision and your generosity and your care and your protection. Even though we didn't see it at the time, we can see it now because we're looking back. And so God's people have told the story all the time, because when you see a snapshot, which is what we all do, I can see today and I have difficulty remembering what came before that. When you see the whole thing, you begin to see, oh, God was there, and God was there, and God was there, and God was there. And I didn't see it at the time, and I'd forgotten it completely now, but I can see the faithfulness of God and that truth that I was hanging on to, that Jesus has got me and he will not let me go. I can see it in my life. And so we started, get it now, take a piece of paper out and a pen and start to draw a timeline of your life, and include in it all the appendices that you need to, all the little asterisks and notes, and say, oh, well, that person, I wasn't even supposed to meet them, but I took a job that I didn't want in a city I'd never heard of just because it paid, and I sat next to this person who turned out to be a lifesaver for me. And that thing happened that when my parents met, which meant I got an incredible mum, an incredible dad, or that thing was really super painful, and there's no way I could have survived that without this thing happening. And even though I couldn't see it at the time, God was there. And when you have this lifeline, this timeline of your life, you're able to look back and go, oh, God has been faithful. Maybe I don't feel it today. Maybe today is a down moment in my life. Maybe I'm just in the dark and in the void. But I can look back and see that he has been faithful. And if you're really in a dark moment, then sometimes you need to sit next to somebody else and say, can I look at your lifeline for a moment? Because I need to understand that God has been faithful to others, and hang on to that and cling on to that for hope and joy. It's the truth that Jesus has you. It's remembering that truth the whole time, and it's reminding of ourselves, God has got me. That cannot be shaken, that cannot be taken away, that cannot be destroyed. Therefore, even when it's flipping amazing, that isn't the thing I'm banking on to bring me joy. Even when it's incredibly bad, I'm still able to survive because God's got a bigger plan, and he's always been faithful. And therefore, in all circumstances, in all places, and at all times, I'm able to have joy. That's where we've been this month. Next month, make sure you grab your booklet. We're moving on to some other characteristics of a disciple. Track with it each day. Just remember, a little bit of the Bible each day is going to change us over time, and we're going to be a radically different person in a few weeks, months, years than I am today, and that's the plan. Keep going, keep chasing Jesus, keep growing in your faith. Have a great week. There's only a few days left till the weekend.